With the reintroduction of Pokemon Home, we have returning Pokemon such as Grookey and Diglett, as well as the newly released Voltorb and Growlithe T-Suite. With this, the metagame has shifted drastically. One sleeper pick that I think has gone under many people's radars is an old reliable favorite, Foongus. Being a great pick in Generations 6 and 7, while being somewhat niche in Generations 5, 8, and pre-Home 9, Foongus is extremely noteworthy as a wall that kept many metagame threats in check due to its myriad of positive traits. That begs the question, what made this former staple lose favor within the metagame? How did Foongus move from a legend to a has-been? And with the release of Home, will it return to its supremacy it had before? If you like this video, please like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment down below to know that you like this kind of content. Thank you. Foongus is a Pokemon introduced in Generation 5 that is Grass Poison type with a base 69 HP stat, 55 base attack, 45 base defense, 55 base special attack and special defense, and 15 base speed. Its functionality in every single generation was the exact same. A bulky wall who could support teammates using Spore and heal itself due to access to Regenerator. It paired well versus physical attackers such as Timber, Mienfoo, and Diglett due to being able to take their hits quite well. Resisting water was also quite valuable in staving off water types such as Frillish, Staryu, and Chinchou. It could not wall everything, of course, as it could be overwhelmed if there were multiple Pokemon that needed Foongus to deal with them. However, its support was valuable as a solid pivot that could support teammates with Spore. By putting an opponent to sleep, it could take it out of the game for 1 to 3 turns. Combine this with the previously mentioned Regenerator and Synthesis for consistent healing, and it was a fantastic Pokemon that could take lots of punishment. In its debut generation, Foongus is currently alright. The reason for this is that sleep-inducing moves are banned. It's broken in Generation 5, so not only do you get 1 to 3 turns, whenever your opponent switches, this timer resets. So the main defining mechanic that made Foongus worthwhile just doesn't exist anymore. You can still absorb Toxic Spikes and a nice pivot, but it's not recommended for new players to use it. So we're going straight into Generation 6. It's A rank, and for good reason. Spore is back, and you paired up decently versus the newly introduced Fairy type as a result of being part poison. The newly released Contrary Snivy has a hard time being a sweeper when Foongus has a quadruple resist to its otherwise monstrous Leaf Storms. Water types such as Chinchou or Staryu struggle with it as well. Even a great check in Fairy Seed has to contend with Hidden Power Fire, which otherwise breaks it. While it pairs up poorly versus flying types, it was very good as a check to the checks to those flying types. Rock types wanted very little to do with Foongus because of Giga Drain, making it great at threatening those who got in the way of a flying type sweep. Steel types didn't want to be slept by Spore and were threatened by Hidden Power Fire. Its main competition for a specially defensive team slot were Porygon, whose fantastic bulk and lack of weaknesses made it very good at taking hits, and the aforementioned Fairy Seed, which had a fantastic defensive profile that was resistant laden and could set Stealth Rocks. The competition for a physically defensive slot was dominated by Fairy types, such as Spritzee and Snubbull. Snubbull had access to Intimidate, Thief, which when combined with Berry Juice could steal an opposing Eviolite, and a good support move pool such as Fire Punch and Thunder Wave. Spritzee was very defensive with access to Wish for team support and reliable recovery with Protect, as well as Stab Moonblast to hit opposing fighting types very hard. Even with this competition, Foongus was still an excellent Pokemon in Generation 6. Generation 7 is interesting as a result of a few new additions. Foongus rose to A+ rank, but it was not without issues it had to deal with. Z-moves were introduced, meaning that Pokemon you could previously check quite well were now liable to break you over. Staryu could run Icium Z to turn Ice Beam into Sub-Zero Slammer, which had a very good chance to kill Foongus after Stealth Rock. The other issue Foongus had to deal with was the introduction of Marianne, a water poison type that had access to fantastic moves in Scald and Knockoff. Both were quite good in being able to spread status, threaten walls to flying types such as Onix or Pawniard, and have a fighting resist typing alongside the ability Regenerator. One very important note is that Marianne was not weak to flying or fire types, making it better versus Pokemon such as Vullaby and Ponyta. Then we get to Generation 8, where Foongus finally fell off. Vullaby was eventually banned in Generation 8, but before that, Foongus had maintained the status it had before. However, afterwards, it was significantly worse off. The reason for this is because of how the metagame shifted in response to Mienfoo. Everyone had to deal with it, and poison types were very ideal at it. However, as a pure wall, Coughing stepped up as the new best Pokemon for this role. This is because it had neutralizing gas, which denied Regenerator from Mienfoo and made it easier to deal with over the course of the game. Another change to the metagame was the rise of Natsu in order to check both Minfu itself and the poisons that checked it. The other reason why Natsu was run was Magic Bounce, meaning any status moves that would hit Natsu were instead reflected back to its user instead. This included Stealth Rock, Spikes, and most importantly, Spore. Although Foongus was a fantastic check to Minfu and the newly introduced Grookey in a vacuum, both could use U-turn to go into Natsu with impunity. Koffing had access to Thunderbolt to help shore up this weakness, while Mariani still had access to Knockoff, which crippled Natsu's defensive capabilities over the course of a game. Compared to those two, Foongus couldn't keep up. The final nail in the coffin that sealed Foongus's fate was the removal of Hidden Power. Ferroseed now hard-walled it, absorbed any attacks it wanted to fire off, and could set hazards or use knockoff in return. This got so bad to the point where Moralol saw usage over Foongus. They were both ranked as B- in the viability rankings, but Moralol could status opponents using Effect Spore, which gave it an edge over Foongus because it couldn't just be U-turned on with impunity, even at the cost of Regenerator. It was a terrible generation for Foongus. That leaves us at Generation 9, where Foongus was alright? Its position hasn't stabilized yet, but its main issue is dealing with the newly introduced Toadschool. Toadschool has so much value as a grass type due to its good typing, access to Knockoff and Rapid Spin, as well as Stab Earth Power, Giga Drain, Power Whip, and the ability to use Spore. While it could absorb Toxic Spikes and take a lot of hits, Foongus was very underwhelming compared to Toadschool. With Pokemon Home being released, Foongus is looking very good. Voltorb Hisui is seeing lots of usage due to it being a straight-up upgrade to regular Voltorb. Access to both electric coverage and Leaf Storm makes it very hard to switch into. Grookey with grassy terrain is also quite good due to how strong Woodhammer can be, even against resists. Foongus checks them both while having the tools of previous generations, such as Spore, Sludge Bomb, and Regenerator. We will have to see, as the post-home metagame is currently very underdeveloped. With that being said, Foongus is looking very good on paper. Thank you all very much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you could like, share, subscribe, and all that good stuff, it would be most helpful. Thank you very much, and have a good day.